Hello and welcome everybody to FRS Season 3. This is Division 2, Round 2, and we are in Spain. We had a cracking race last time out in Brazil, and we're hoping for more of the same. Welcome along, guys, to the second race of the season from FRS Season 3, Division 2. My name is Harry Zod, and this is the first time you'll have heard from me on the official FR Series channel. Very excited to be here, and I am joined this evening by none other than Quimbulus.
Thanks for having me along. It's good to be back on Division 2. We had a cracking race, like you said, last week in Brazil. And for a track that is typically not big on overtaking or racing in the real world, we had quite the banger of a race in Division 1 yesterday as well. So hopefully we're looking to see more of that out of the Division 2 drivers.
Indeed. We are in the rolling hills of Spain. Here is the team's championship on the screen for you. So off the back of the first round in Brazil, all of the results from every division, that's PC, Xbox, and PlayStation, are tallied together for the team's championship. This is new to Season 3, and it's Red Bull Racing in the lead after the first round. They are 27 points clear of Racing Point, with Williams quite a long way back in third place there. And spare a thought for poor old Haas down at the bottom after the first round. A lot of penalties picked up in the stewards' room for the Haas team leaves them to the foot of the table.
Yeah, Red Bull Racing off to a tremendous start. Very strong drivers in a lot of the divisions. But as you said, this one is after all the stewards' decisions have been made. So this is the end of week 1. It does not take into account yesterday's PC Division 1 result from Spain yet. So you're looking as it is at the end of week 1.
So here is the PC Division 2 table, and Husam picked up what was a fairly comfortable victory in the first round. So much so, in fact, that nobody else in the division really needs to worry about him anymore, because Husam got himself promoted up to Division 1, where he actually scored a podium yesterday evening. That leaves Rage as the de facto leader of the championship at this stage, ahead of Dog and Timalele. With plenty of well-known and regular faces here in Division 2 already on the board in terms of points.
Yeah, looking down the tables, we see False 12 in P10 picking up 1 point, a vet of the league looking to turn his favors around a little bit. Same with Shamblizi, who's looking to get on the board as well. We have a lot of rookies down at the bottom, but a familiar name at the very, very bottom of the list. You see Cruzo, and as we said, Husam making that move up to Division 1 was made room with Cruzo coming back down to Division 2. He's been a veteran of Division 2 since Season 1 and Season 2, so now he's kind of back in familiar territory. We will see if he can make another change, as he was the runner-up last season in Division 2.
Indeed, the gatekeeper of Division 2 returns. Want to get Division 1, you've got to get through Cruzo first. Here's the calendar. As we said, we were in Brazil last week and Italy on the menu next time around. But this evening, we are in Spain at the Circuit de Catalunya, just outside of Barcelona in the beautiful Spanish countryside. Okay, we are going to take a quick break before we get started here. So while we're doing that, let's have a look at a hot lap of the circuit with Fraser.
I'm Fraser, and I'll talk you through lap of Spain. Opening up the DRS, you want to look out for the slight off-road on the left-hand side of turn 1. You want to use that as your braking point just before the 50-meter board. You want to really aggressively ride this turn 1 curb and the turn 2 curb. You can spin out there, but it's very unlikely if you've got the line right. Stay really tight for turn 3. For turn 4, you want to brake as soon as you pass the bridge. Go for an early apex and use the whole track width for the acceleration, so you get good speed out of there. Then for turn 5, very difficult braking because you can lock up pretty easily. Go on the S-turf for a good exit. Turn 7 and 8, again, be super aggressive on the curbs right there. For turn 9, you want to keep your car as steady as possible, get a bit of curb there so you can actually make it flat. For turn 10, brake at around 100 meter board, go for an early apex, place your car at the red and white curb. For turn 11, be careful not to spin out. For turn 12, the double apex corner, again accelerate very early. Turn 13, 14 and 15, you want to miss the curbs with all that you've got. I sadly clipped those curbs, which cost me a lot of time. But then again, for the final corner, stay as smooth as possible, and that's a lap around Spain. The S is silent, by the way.
Welcome along, everyone, to round 2 of the FRS Division 2 Season 3 here in Spain at the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona. This is the track, 4.6 kilometers, 16 turns, and a high downforce circuit for everyone to tackle this evening.
Yeah, it's a tough track, a lot of adaptation around it. Obviously, the testing track for real life F1. So a mixture of those high speed and low speed corners where you need that extra bit of downforce. It makes overtaking fairly difficult, but as we were saying, pretty good race out of Division 1, really kicked off at the tail end. Well, the other thing to keep an eye out on during this qualifying session is the tires. It is a very high degradation track. So drivers on the soft tire are going to have to be looking at either really stretching a stint out or going for a 2-stop, which is less than ideal. So we'll see if anybody takes the gamble and maybe even qualifies on mediums to make a 1-stopper a little easier to execute.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk in the build-up to this weekend in all the divisions, really, about the strategy, the best strategy to be on for this one. You've got the option of the 2-stop, soft, medium, medium, soft, perhaps, or the alternative is to maybe try and go soft, hard, or medium, hard if you can get that 1-stop strategy to work.
Yeah, around the top of Division 1 yesterday, we saw a mixture of all the strategies. We saw a soft hard in the top race winning position there. We had Sideris in the Red Bull who did a 2-stopper, and then we also had Spike who started outside the top 10 and therefore was on that medium compound to start, who did that medium hard stint. And that seemed to be a really, really good strategy for them. But it looks like we got a little bit of cars backing up, getting ready to start the first flying laps.
Now, if you thought the variable strategies was enough in terms of the cocktail of this qualifying session, well, we have the threat of rain potentially in the air at the end of this session as well. So whether or not that's going to arrive in time for the last few minutes of this, we're not sure yet. Obviously, we'll find out, but that might cram everything into a couple of really high pressure laps here at the start of the session.
Yeah, it's possible that they're going to lose the ability to run a final flying lap in the last 5 minutes when track evolution is at its best. But on the flip side, with the rain coming in, you also see the track temperatures drop down. And for a track that really tests the tires as far as overheating, having a little bit of a cooler track might lead to a little bit better of a lap time. So if that rain does come, you might find people just trying to really hit that balance right on the head.
We do have a yellow flag in Sector 1. That has now cleared, and Dog will be the first car, I believe, to be round 2 complete a time here. Ole Olaf in the McLaren just behind, and purple so far in both sectors.
I jumped on with Dog for a second there. His lap was invalidated, so look for him to get out of the way. Hopefully, there he is moving out of the way of Olaf coming through. So it looks like that McLaren may be the first one to set a flying lap, although we do have Booth coming through. Is he on a flyer of his own to take the early time? Yes, 15.4, so a pretty solid initial time there. We did see pole times dipping into the 14s in the PC Division 1 there.
Indeed, though, Ole Olaf beats that with a 1:15.2, and False 12 also comes across the line with a 15.9 to set the early benchmarks. Dolphy goes P3 now on a 15.6 and swiftly beaten by Rage on a 15.5. So all the times in the 15s at this stage.
I've been noticing across the board here at the first round of Season 3 is with the expansion, the number of new drivers joining in really has tightened up the field spread a lot. A lot of the divisions had the top 13 or 14 cars within a second in the qualifying pace. So really a couple of tenths can gain and lose you a ton of time as Timalele goes just behind Ole Olaf there, puts it on P2.
Indeed, a good lap from Timalele there in the Mercedes. Currently front row, but there's a long way to go in this session. So on the basis of what we've seen so far, it doesn't seem like anyone's particularly keen to qualify on the medium tyres, especially in such a close grid like this. You cost yourself far too much track position, which is, of course, king in Spain.
Yeah, track position, and then the ideal strategies that you're going to try and run. I see in the chat somebody's asking about stints on tires. Typically, we're going to see if somebody's trying to make a one stop off of a set of a softs to go soft hard, we should see them around lap 7 or 8. And then if they're on the mediums, go from lap 13 to 15 or so. But like I said, high degradation track. And the other thing that's a real challenge is keeping temperature down in those front tires. Once you overheat that front left, it's a big limiter around this circuit, especially if you get that tire heated up too much in that really tight chicane at the very end of the lap. You just understeer before you're trying to get the power down for that last corner. So a lot of long right-handers that really load up that front left, and seeing that front left overheat can lose you 4 or 5 tenths in a lap if that tire is not gripping up properly.
We've got a lull in the session at this point. Mark Hopkins just going out onto the circuit on his own. But you'd expect to see this. Everyone going out and doing one hot lap, back to the pits, new set of boots, and out for a second run. The question will be, it seems very bright and sunny right now. Is that rain going to arrive or not?
Yeah, we're seeing Cruzo pop into the chat every once in a while he's in the pit lane. So he's doing a double duty, talking to people in the chat and while he's driving. But it looks like he's saying the updated forecast is it's going to be borderline. It may miss them at the tail end. It may see some drops at the very end. So we will just have to kind of wait and see as Mark on the outlap there, weaving to, I guess, get temperature in the tires, although I think there's probably plenty of temperature in them already. We did see some pretty big crashes and spins in the Division 1 qualifying, trying to push for pace there. So we'll see if Div 2 can keep it on the track, as Olaf still up there with that 15.2, holding down the top spot there, though, heading out for another lap.
Indeed, got a 10.5 over Timolele, but as you can see, there's only 7/10 of a second splitting the top 10 as it stands. So it's very, very fine margins. And of course, on a circuit where it is so important to have that track position, if you can hook up that qualifying lap exactly how you want it, you can really gain yourself a big advantage going into the race. So the problem that Mark Hopkins might have is a little bit of traffic, but it seems that the track is relatively clear, and hopefully those on the circuit will be keeping well out of the way. Not got a time on the board, so a little bit more pressure on this one, though there's still plenty more time in this session with a little over 10.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, and one thing to keep an eye out for, as you see Mark Hopkins just stepping over the line there, that's going to invalidate his lap. As I was about to say, track limits can be a bit of an issue around here. You spend so much time riding curbs to really put in the best lap you can around this circuit. We actually saw track limits play a role in the finale of yesterday's race, as Weltering picked up a late 3-second penalty. He for most of the race had a penalty differential where he would have jumped to the race winning position if he had not picked up that penalty, but picked up that penalty very late, and then had to try and make the move on track.
Just to hop in, we've had a message up saying that Donald has been disqualified from the session for blocking the pit lane. So the assumption would be, well, I mean, that's going to stick, but that'll be Donald presumably starting at the back of the field for this one, which is less than ideal.
Yeah, definitely not the place the Renault driver wants to find themselves. Unfortunate to get caught up. We actually had a blocking the pit lane disqualification in the Xbox division race in Brazil, although that was during the actual race itself, where Voki has Charlie Chibbles has gone around at turn 9, that flat out. He's in the inside barrier there. It looks like broken wing, but I think all of his wheels are still attached. You can see him there on the left as the cars go through, but that may really cause some cars to check up around there, as that tricky right-hander has caught him out.
Yeah, so Ollie's backed out of that lap. It looks like most of the cars in that section have backed out of the lap. So especially with the likes of Mark Hopkins still not having a time on the board, there's now a lot of pressure on the next run for those who are certainly outside the top 10 and looking to move up. A few drivers still in the 16s, Luke, Cruzo, and Erbil at this point. Erbil a little bit off the back of the pack, but presumably with a bit of extra time to find. So, cars backing up in the final section now, just looking for a little bit of space. Both the Ferraris here, and presumably Charlie Chibbles is recovering to the pit lane after that.
We'll as he's diving in. Interesting though, it looks like his front wing is still fully attached on my screen at least. Which normally we're running with the full damage, so we'll see what goes on with that one, or if damage may have accidentally been switched off.
Yeah, it'll be worth checking out that. We do have Cruzo on another hot lap, as well as one of the Renaults coming onto a hot lap as well. That's Erbil that you're looking at right now.
And Cruzo's improved by about 0.3 through that first sector there, so if he keeps that pace up, it should jump him just inside the top 10, although being just inside the top 10, as we've been talking about, strategy has might be a bit of a curse. You may either want to be starting 11th or inside the top 5.
Personal best from Erbil as well, who goes green in Sector 1, just a 10th off Ole Olaf's current best time, or the best time in Sector 1 so far. Here's Cruzo, invalidated the lap. So, a lot of drivers, and of course these drivers, a lot of these guys are experienced at these qualifying sessions, but just pushing to the maximum to try and eke out every bit of lap time they possibly can in such a close field. And a lot of guys just stepping over what is legal and what is not. Erbil is still good on this lap, so there's no traffic in the way. Green in both sectors so far. And we're just coming into the fiddly final chicane that I don't think a single driver in this league enjoys. Hopefully we don't lose too much time there. Leaving a little bit to play with on the outside there. And round the final corner across the line for Erbil. And it is a improvement up to P13, 16.1 from the Renault. So pops up ahead of Cruzo, but still outside of that top 10, which would give you free tyre strategy, of course, going into the race.
Yeah, and I think the area we're seeing a lot of drivers invalidating their laps is on the inside of turn 8, the second part of that quick left-right switch before the heading back up the hill. If you get just a little bit of understeer into turn 7, it's almost impossible to avoid the curbing in turn 8, and that's where we've seen a lot of drivers pick up invalidations in qualifying and penalties in the race. I know in my practices, that's probably been where I've picked up the vast majority of my penalties there.
Worth a mention of the two Haas drivers as well, who've gone into P3 and P4 while we were watching a lot of invalidated times, and that looks like a bit of a messy first section from Dolphy there. Didn't quite hit the apexes as you would have liked. Dolphy on a quick lap here. See how that looks. So we've lost a couple of tenths already in that first sector.
Yeah, there's so much time to be gained and lost in that first complex of corners 1, 2, and 3. If you really hook it up, you can pick up a ton of time, but if you get it just even a little bit wrong on the entry of 1, you're going to cost yourself time through that whole complex of corners, and as a result, the entire first sector.
Oh, that was a big moment there for Dolphy as we came through Kampsa, the right-hander. So we're a few tenths down now, and we're not even improving on our own time. So that one probably going to be abandoned, and boof goes P1 on a 14.9 in the Haas.
That is a significant lap time for him. We only saw, I think, 4 or 5 drivers in PC Division 1 go into the 14s, a lot of low 15s there, but right there up into P1, first driver to crack into the 14s. And I will say for Dolphy, though, even though he lost the time, it looks like one of the McLarens has gotten it wrong on...
yeah, that is Ole Olaf,
there,
who's facing the wrong way. So I was just about to sing the praises of Ole Olaf and say, well, we got in a good time at the start, and no one's quite managed to pick up and beat it, but that's all gone wrong because we've made a mess of this effort, and Booth is now the leader of this qualifying session on provisional pole. Dog in the racing point, still on a lap as it stands, currently in the final sector, and Charlie Chibbles finally getting a time on the board, but the Ferraris P15 and P16 at the moment. Dog was slightly up on their previous best as we come through the final corner and across the line. It's P3 for the racing points.
A good improvement for Dog there. Not necessarily the return to Division 2 for Cruzo, I'd say, but there's plenty of time in this session to get that one final lap in. None of the clouds have seemed to have moved in yet, so it looks like everybody's going to get their full qualifying runs in there. But the Haas is really threatening to be an impressive pairing here in Division 2. We saw Moorwood just expertly nurse the tires and get to the end of the Brazil race there, stretching that hard stint to the very end, and Booth taking that alternate strategy, picking up some late points there. So they kind of split the strategies there, and we'll see what they can do further up the grid today.
Morwood just 0.02 of a second slower than his teammate, but down on his own personal best. This is looking like it's going to be very, very close at the top. The graphic on screen still showing Ole Olaf at the fastest time, but it is actually Booth at this point in the Haas, who is on provisional pole with a few minutes to go. Yeah, we do have Chamblisi and Charlie Chibbles on the medium tyre as well. So neither of those drivers in the top 10 as it stands, which means that it doesn't really matter. They would get free choice of tyre anyway. We'll see whether they change that going into their final run. The racing point there of Dog just keeping out the way of Morwood, who did improve in the second sector. Little bit of a step out from the back end there as we come into the final chicane. Was that an invalidation? It looked very, very close, if not, but round the final corner. And it is not an improvement. We lost time in Sector 3. So Morwood remains in P5. And we've got one of the Ferraris now. Cruzo just coming through the final corner on an outlap to start his quick one. Probably final shot this one with only 2.5 minutes of the session to go.
Absolutely, yeah. Not quite enough time for drivers to get all the way back around new tires and back out. But you saw Morwood losing that time in the final sector. And a tight chicane is already difficult, but you throw those big sausage curbs up in Sector 3, and that makes it really tough. You so much as get one tire up on there, you raise the floor off the ground, lose some of that downforce that's sealed from the underfloor, and the car just kind of slides. So surprising to see him only less than a 10th off of his best time, but definitely losing the opportunity to probably go front row with where he was at before that Sector 3.
Indeed, Cruzo has improved. We're on board with Cruzo at the moment as we come through the middle sector of the lap. So improved in Sector 1. Flat out if you can. Through Campsa here and over the hill. DRS wide open down the back straight. And we are just a 10th down. This is a much, much better lap from Cruzo. The Williams there keeping well out of the way as we come through the awkward right-hander up the hill. Get on the power as quickly as we possibly can. Wide. Still legal. Just about getting away with that. Into the chicane, try not to lose time. Don't take too much curb, and round the final corner for Cruzo, looking to improve on what is the back of the grid as it stands, and that is much better. P7 for the Ferrari.
Yeah, great run for him to improve significantly. They're surprised to not see him invalidate that lap going wide, but apparently the game...
Oh, and a McLaren off in the middle sector. Adam is in the wall. That'll be a fairly quick yellow flag. Or fairly long yellow flag, I should say. That's looking like it's going nowhere in a hurry. We're coming to the circuit now.
Again, but coming back on, he's on that little extra bit of a runoff there. Although he's parked it up on the outside of Sector 2 there. So we'll see if he gets himself going again. And taking his time to get going again, making sure the track is fully clear there, but nobody around him at this point. 30 seconds left to go. We've got a couple cars still on outlaps, getting close to starting their flying laps. Looks like Timalele has just gotten underway, and we have Mark Hopkins now coming to start his final flying lap just before the checkered flag starts waving.
Dolphy has gone P3 in the Red Bull.
A brilliant lap after having that big moment through turn 9 and keeping the car out of the barriers there, but has done well to get up on the second row of the grid.
An improvement from Boo for 14.7, has gone quicker again in that Haas. So now with 2.5 tenths advantage over anybody else. I think that was a very, very slight improvement, but an improvement nonetheless. We'll see if anybody else can match that. We're watching the reigning Division 3 champion Timalele in the Mercedes. Currently in P5. Green in Sector 1, and we'll see what the time is now. We are just a 10th shy. It wasn't an improvement in the second sector of the lap for Timalele.
He was just a 10th, less than a 10th better on his own time, about a 10.5 off of Booth's time. But you can see how tight the field spread is once you get off of that pole position. Half a second covering basically the entire top 10.
Rage improves to P3. Yeah, Timalele around the final bend and now up to P4 in the Mercedes. So Booth, Ole Olaf, Rage and Timalele are your current top 4. Anyone else on a lap? False 12 has come into the pit lane, and I think that is it. It is pole position for Booth in the Haas.
Yeah, a mega lap from him. He didn't even need to improve on that last one, but he still went out and did it. Picked up another 10.5 or so to go to a 14.7, which is a tremendously quick lap there from him.
In such a close field, that is a really impressive time from Booth to get the 14.7, which would probably be a very, very good time in Division 1 as well.
Absolutely. And yeah, one thing I'm taking a look at is if you go from P2 to P16, or P15 is covered by less than a second. So it's tight all the way up and down the field from the 15.0s to the 15.9s. Only Charlie Chibbles just not able to get inside the 15s there. He went up for the mediums, but he's going to get that free tire choice. So look for drivers like False 12, Shamblizi, and Adam, who is a defending Division 2 champion there, to make an attack from outside the top 10 on that extra strategy.
A point from Hummersep in chat as well, saying that Chamblizi managed to get the perfect soft tyre run to P11, meaning that we get the free choice to start on the medium tyres anyway, if we so wish.
Yeah, so your starting grid as it stands right now is going to be Boof and Ole Olaf holding the front row, with Rage and Timolele just behind. Dolphy and Dog make up row 3 there. Morwood and Luke on row 4. Cruzo and False 12 rounding out the top 10. Then we've got Shamblizi, Mark Hopkins, Adam, Pusel, Herbal, Charlie Chibbles, and A.R. Donald, who was unfortunately disqualified for that blocking, but let's see what he can do in the race. He's got very good pace we saw in Brazil there, and now he's going to have a good strategy to work on.
Yeah, so Donald, unfortunately, possibly in the realms of hoping for a safety car or equivalent in this race. Certainly not impossible.
No, we saw some big crashes there, but surprisingly nobody DNFing, so it makes me wonder about the damage status again, but that's really going to be the indicator on whether we're going to have DNFs and safety cars or not.
Indeed. So I don't know whether we can get, I don't know whether it's worth it or whether an admin is able to check if the damage setting is on. It's possibly just us being surprised that a few of those cars that ended up in the wall didn't end up more damaged than they were. You know, if you go inside on, you can possibly get away with it depending on the speed. But we are very, very nicely set for a cracker of a race here in Spain. The two guys up towards the top of the championship who weren't Husam, who has of course moved up to Division 1, Rage and Dog, are right up there in the top 6. So they will both be looking to try and at the very least get themselves on the podium in this one, and then put in a nice foundation for their championship challenge.
It looks like we skipped the formation lap and the lights are already out and they're just getting off the field. Everybody's spreading out, finding their way into turn 1 as Olaf going down the inside of Boof, a long run, a little bit of slipstreaming, and it looks like Boof has lost out in that first corner though. So far, cars have been clean through turn 1.
Yeah, so it's Ole Olaf leading from Boof and Rage. We've got Dolphy P4, Timolele 5th, but we're still battling for position. Decent start for Cruzo as well, who's made up a couple of places and is ahead of Morwood, who's dropping down in the Haas. Tricky start for both of the Haas cars, really. So Ole Olaf leads as we make what looks like throughout the field has been a fairly clean start. Not seeing anybody off the road. Charlie Chibbles a little bit slow on the hard tyre at the back of the field, possibly just keeping out of trouble. Oh, Dog is off. Huge incident in the midfield. Dog is out of this race. We didn't quite pick it up on the broadcast, but we've lost the sole racing point from this one there. Oh no, we're just in the background there. We picked that up. Dog out of this race, losing it at the left-hander at the bottom of the hill and one of the wheels. So we've not got any sign of a safety car yet, just the yellow flag in Sector 2. So Ole Olaf leads them round at the end of lap 1 from Boof and Rage, but the front three very, very close together as Boof takes a look in the slipstream. Ole Olaf going to defend the inside. And the Haas sweeping round into the lead. Got there ahead of the braking zone, really. So Booth regaining that P1 that we had from qualifying and taking the lead of this race. Good move there.
And now Rage is looking up the inside of Ole Olaf. Got a better run off turn 3 now, side by side into turn 4. A little bit of contact between the two of them. Are you going to be able to keep it clean? Wing damage, it looks like. And Timolele sweeping around the outside, taking advantage of that battle and moving himself into P2.
Yeah, so there's a bit of locking of wheels there between Ole Olaf and Rage. And Timolele, the big winner from that, gaining a couple of spaces and a little bit of clean air as well, with Booth stretching out a 1.3 second lead now, thanks to that incident. We've got Dolphy falling down the field as well in the Red Bull with wing damage. Big wing damage on that Red Bull.
Yeah, it looks like he got caught up in a little bit of that fighting as well and is certainly going to have to come into the pit stop. It's going to be a little early to try and get a set of hards to the end, so we may see him really having to make that extra pit stop that we were trying to avoid. But as we saw, a lot of drivers starting on the soft compound of tires, so we'll see what tire strategies they opt for as this race goes on. Looks like it's going to stay pretty dry the whole way through.
Lots of scrapping in the midfield as that slow-moving Red Bull is boxing up cars. So we don't have any DRS this lap, but lots of cars nose to tail here towards the back of the field. We've got Erbil just ahead of Pucel and Luke, but it might not stay that way as we go into turn one. We've got the tyres up on the screen for you now. Adam is currently the lead runner on the medium tyre as we've got side-by-side action here between Morwood and False. Morwood recovering through, back up into P6, but False keeping it round the outside, refusing to give this one up. Holding the inside line now for the left-hander, but Morwood sticking it out and running out of room. Adam now on that medium tyre looking to get involved, but we're not quite going to have the run, I don't think. Just playing it sensible and keeping to the long-term strategy on this one. So Booth continues to lead from Timalele, who's just brought in the gap by about a tenth of a second as we've gone through this lap. The important thing for Booth is that he is still outside of that DRS range, which is of course active now on the main straight and the back straight from this point onwards in the race.
Yeah, getting that gap as Rage and Olaf squabbled away and opening up that gap to Timalele has been a big win for him there. And if he can just keep that gap out, should keep Timalele at bay. But we should see with the high deg of this track here, the soft tires are going to start to fall off in about another lap or so, and we'll see the medium tires already starting to have better performance. So look for drivers like Adam and Shamblizi to start putting a big pressure on Morwood ahead.
Luke on the soft tyres improving up ahead of Erbil there to take P11. And the interesting thing from the Red Bull with wing damage, Dolphy, as I think we've got an incident. Erbil's off the track in the Renault, and it looks like it's a big one. Lots of gravel being kicked up. That's just coming out of the second corner, the second part of that chicane. So that's a long recovery from there for the Renault. I was just about to say on Dolphy, he opted for the medium tyres on that pit stop. So suggesting that we're committing to a two-stop here because we're not going to get those all the way to the end.
No, and we'll see how much conservation he can do, because going medium to the end from that point is still a little bit marginal. He may still have to run the hards, might be just trying to cover up as much gap as he can on the middle stint, and then have the hards at the tail end on the lighter fuel loads.
We've got the Williams round, so Pucel going wide at Kampser, the right-hander, kicking up a lot of gravel, and then spinning round as he recovered to the circuit. So quite a few mistakes, driver errors under a lot of pressure in this early part of the race. So those who can keep the head, keep the tyres in check, will be looking even better the further through this race we go. Ole Olaf in DRS range of the car ahead, but not close enough to make a move at this stage. It is Booth from Timalele, Rage, Ole Olaf, and Cruzo very quietly going about settling into fifth place in this one.
A bit of jitters and getting readjusted to Division 2 in qualifying, but is showing some good pace now back in the race trim. I mean, we saw with Rage in week 1 after spent his season in Div 1, coming back to Division 2, putting in a stellar race at Brazil. We'll see if Cruzo can do the same thing, getting back to more familiar hunting grounds.
Morwood and False continuing to get to know each other quite well here as they continue to fight over P6. And another driver having a very quiet but very effective run so far is Donald on those hard tyres starting from the back of the field. Already up to P12 thanks to a combination of incidents ahead and mistakes from others. But that Renault just very quietly trying to bring itself into play, especially if we get a late safety car in this race.
Yeah, it looks like Mark Hopkins has gotten a little loose just ahead of him as we're taking a little look at the replay of the battling between Olaf and Rage there that allowed Timalele to sneak through.
Yeah, so Rage still with a little bit of damage on the wing of that car. It'll be interesting to see whether he changes that at the stop. We see the move there from Luke on Erbil, and I think Erbil then had the mistake. Straight after that, you can see just popping off into the gravel there. But yeah, Rage still going well. We've got a move here from Morwood going up into P6 again, and that fight with False 12 continuing on, though. Adam and the McLaren get involved as well at this stage. Chamblizi's Mercedes just sitting behind, keeping an eye on things and possibly hoping for a little bit of contact from the drivers ahead. But Morwood's got that move completed now.
Yeah, but one thing to keep an eye on for Morwood there is he's used a lot of his hybrid power. He's running only about 15% in the battery at this stage, as False 12 and Adam both in the 50s and 60s percentage. So a lot of extra power to deploy down that main straight, maybe just kind of biding their time to make the attack.
The big winners from the start have really been Cruzo up 4 places and Adam up 5 places, who are both running very, very strong. As we said, Adam, the lead driver on the medium tyre at this stage. So if that proves to be the right strategy to be on, Adam could find himself making up quite a few positions later on in this race, as we see Cruzo run wide there through the right-hander.
Yeah, and as the lead car on the medium compounded tires, he knows that as the soft tire runners come into the pits, he's just going to get more and more clean air to run in, whereas those drivers on the soft tires may be dropping into a midfield battle with other drivers who started on the mediums. So if he can hold that position or even make his way past drivers like False and Moorwood, he can put himself in a really good position to, at the tail end of this race, be challenging for the race win.
Here we go to turn 1, Moorwood round the outside and getting that move on Cruzo to take P5 in this race. We'll see if Cruzo can fight back around the long right-hander, but looking like we are running out of tyres on that Ferrari.
Yeah, and False 12 went wide into turns 1 and 2, and that's allowed Adam and Shamblizi, both on the medium tires, to sneak their way through. So a couple other cars kind of getting out of the way. It is lap 7. Those soft tires typically in window for a 2-stop strategy, so they're definitely losing a ton of performance at this stage. Hard to keep them in temperature window. We might see 2-stoppers diving in on this lap or the next, and then probably by lap 9 at the latest, we'll see those who are trying to make the 1-stop work coming in for those hard compounded tires off of those softs.
Adam and Shamblizi really benefiting here from just errors and contact from the drivers ahead. They're just sort of steadily making up places, keeping their noses out of trouble, and running to their own tyre strategies. And it might pay a lot of long-term dividends for them.
Yeah, something you see as we move down from Division 1 down to the further divisions is the pace is still decent from the drivers across the board, as Rage is going to be the first one coming to the pits, but it's the consistency that's the big difference. Mistakes are really what come due in there. So, you know, as the old adage goes, to finish first you must finish, and I think Adam and Shamblizi are going to be really trying to take that one to heart in this race.
Rage going to the hard tyres here. New front wing as well, so it'll be a slow stop for the AlphaTauri. Finally released as Booth has increased his lead to 2.7 seconds. There was a pit stop there for False 12 as well. So Rage will have lost a little bit of time changing that wing, but ultimately will feel the benefit of that in not losing extra time for the rest of this race.
Yeah, and he's about 4 seconds to Pusel in front, so he's got clean air to work with. Really, though, getting those hard tires up to temperature around here, it takes a lap or two before they really start to settle in, as Timolele is the first one to pick up that track limits penalties that we were talking about in the qualifying session. So at this stage, he's now essentially dropped himself to 3rd as he runs on track, with Olaf being within that 3-second time gap.
Very, very much advantage Booth at this stage. He was starting to take a firm control on this race.
Yeah, we'll see. It looks like he's staying out one more lap there on those soft tires. Clearly happy with how they're going. So as long as they still feel good and they're not going to puncture on him, he can still keep running on him.
Timolele pits from P2, as does Ole Olaf just behind, and Moorwood will be released now. So as it stands on track at the moment, a Haas 1-2. We'll see what tyres the Mercedes goes to. It's the hard tyres, no surprise there. Everyone trying to make the 1-stop work. Ole Olaf in just behind as well, and Cruzo in for the hard tyres as well. So soft hard seems to be the optimum strategy that these guys want to go for. Charlie Chibbles just making his way down the straight now. Timolele will be keen to clear that car, and just about makes it to the apex of turn 1 ahead of the already hard tyre shod Ferrari.
Yeah, big for him to get out just ahead of a car who was already out on track. Charlie already has those tires up to temperature. 8 laps in, they're still in very good shape for a set of hard compound tires. So, but Timolele getting that clean air on his nose, not having to try and make an overtake around this track where there's really only one particularly good overtaking zone. So we'll see him run forward, and we see Adam and Shamblizi now up into P3 and 4 on those medium compound tires.
Yeah, those two almost working together, not fighting each other too much, as Booth, the race leader, comes into the pits. Get this thing slowed down before the line. We don't need to do anything stupid here, like picking up a penalty. And this will presumably be for the hard tyres as well. Plenty of time in pocket. And Moorwood follows in. So it's going to be a double stack from the Haas team, as Adam in the McLaren now takes the lead of this race.
That's unfortunate for Moorwood, because the game doesn't handle double stacks particularly well. He's going to lose quite a bit of time, I think. Yep, as you see them hesitate. Fairly decent double stack from the game, though. It's not the worst I've seen, but yeah, you see him being held just a little extra longer. But it handled it decently. But not as fast as Mercedes real life double stacks that go well until they don't.
An attempt there from Purcell on Ole Olaf, but didn't quite work out. Purcell still on the medium tyres. So your top three now are Adam, Chamblizi, and Donald, right from the back of the field. None of those drivers have stopped.
Yeah, leading out from the front there, we saw Cruzo making a move on False 12. False 12 in his pit stop opted for a set of medium compound tires, so has locked himself into the two-stop strategy at this stage. We'll see how that does for him pace-wise. He's definitely going to need to get past Cruzo again in order to really open up those mediums and let the pace advantage dictate, you know, his two-stop strategy. But if he's not able to clear him, he's just going to lose time that he really needs to be making on that faster tire.
Just to pick up on what chat are talking about, we know that damage is on because we saw the Poor Old Racing Point take most of its wheels off on the barrier on lap 1 of the race. So we can confirm that damage is on in this race. Big fight here for P11 between Rage, Cruzo, and False 12. False 12 to the inside. Not really an overtaking spot, that one. But we're more just on those fresher tyres looking to get past these two cars ahead and start to run some laps. This will really kill the two-stop strategy if we end up stuck behind these two cars. But this is an excellent run now for the Alfa Romeo down the main straight.
Yeah, but Cruzo getting that DRS off of Rage in front of him is really what's going to save him on this particular tackle. The False 12 having a little look, but not quite long enough inside to make the move. And yeah, as you say, really hurting that two-stop strategy for him.
Yeah, if we end up stuck in a DRS train, this is just going to murder the strategy for the Alfa Romeo here. Timberlele having a look on the inside of Mark Hopkins. Mark Hopkins has not stopped in this race. So Timberlele just looking to clear what is de facto a back marker at this stage, and doing so going into turn 7 there. So Timberlele still net P2 and 3.8 seconds behind the net race leader, who is still Booth in that hassle. Sorry, it's not 3.8 seconds. We're waiting for an update on the timing screens, which I'm sure will come to us soon. The Haas a little bit up the road.
Yeah, definitely got some ground to make up at this stage, but you can see Adam and Chamblizi still running comfortably out front. Donald having gotten himself on that hard tire start for a while there, so he's looking for the field to kind of spread out and avoid those DRS trains that you were talking about. The longer he can go on that set of hard tires is going to be better for him. He may be able to actually pull off kind of a reverse strategy, stretching those hards very, very long, and then being able to get on a set of fresh softs at the tail end of the race. Because he was TSQ'd so early in qualifying, he has fresh, unrun soft tires. We have,
well, I'm just looking at the lap times for the leader, Adam, who on his last 5 laps has done a 19.9, a 19.9, a 19.5, a 19.9, and a 20.2. So excellent consistency there. It's allowing him to just keep those tires. He does have a couple of warnings, so he needs to be careful with track limits, does Adam. But so far, a very, very strong run. But it remains to be seen whether we can gain all of that time back on the hard tire that we're losing out to the guys who are on the fresher tires at this stage of the race. Move up the inside here from Charlie Chibbles on Mark Hopkins. Mark Hopkins now really struggling on those medium tires, and it's all boxing up for around P6 to P9 there. There's 4 cars getting involved. Ole Olaf having a dive. Oh, and Ole Olaf is round. That was an ambitious attempt, to say the least, and we're having to recover that car now to the circuit, losing a lot of places and dropping down to 14th. Maybe needed to just be a bit more patient there. The AlphaTauri was clearly struggling for grip. We would have had to run down the main straight.
And now as he's trying to get those rear tires cooled back down from making that spin turn, it's compromised his exit, and now Dolphy going down the inside with the DRS help, but Ole Olaf fighting maybe in an area that he should have just settled down in, trying to make something happen in a very tough spot, has really cost himself there.
Yeah, picking your battles is as important as anything else when you get into this stage of a race. You just got to occasionally show that little bit of patience. Yes, we're losing time that we don't want to lose, but we've just lost a lot more time from having not just held our horses and waited for the right moment. Currently looking at Luke, who we've not really seen a lot of in this race in the Red Bull, just behind Cruzo, who has lost out. Oh, and Cruzo is off and retired out of this race. That is potentially a safety car, virtual safety car called. Cruzo in the Ferrari out of this one, spinning at the same place that we lost Dog on lap 1 of this race.
And Adam is right at the entry of the pit lane as that VSC was called. Him and Shamblizi both in right as the pit window is about to open up for those medium tires to get onto the hard. So really fortunate timing for those two drivers. Only going to lose about 11 seconds under the VSC as opposed to the full 22 seconds you lose on track. So very fortunate. They were nearly past the pit entrance when that VSC was called, but they just got in time.
Booth does retake the lead. I'm just keeping an eye on Timalele now, who is right side by side with the McLaren. Timalele is going to take the place, but Adam is now P3 when we remove Donald, who opted not to stop there under the virtual safety car, presumably because he's already on the hard tyres and was therefore unable to switch to something that was going to get him to the end of the race.
Oh, and Shamblizi has just picked up a drive-through penalty for speeding under VSC as it was going green, not keeping that delta in the green before as the flag was waved. And that's going to be a huge loss of time for a driver who made a good stop under that VSC. Although Adam has picked it up as well. So it looks like there may have been something bugged on the exit, or we'll have to keep an eye out on that. But it's going to be a drive-through, which you have to serve. Otherwise, you get disqualified. So really choosing a very good time to make their pit stop, but now really getting punished.
Yeah, that's going to really hurt the pair of them because, of course, the drive-through, we can't really hang on to that one and appeal it to the stewards. You've got to serve that in-game, else you'll be disqualified from the session.
Yeah, unfortunate as they ran their strategy essentially to perfection, and now with the tightness of the field, they're going to be dropping down at least 6 or 7 positions. They're going to try and utilize the 3 laps that they have to build up as much of a gap, let the field spread out. But a drive-through, they'll probably lose about, I would say probably about 12 to 15 seconds of on-track time, and that's going to put them around just the points-paying position rather than fighting for podiums.
So the current leader is Donald, who started last in this race but has not pitted on the hard tyres. So what I'm looking at, if we remove the 2 drivers that haven't stopped, which is Donald and Charlie Chibbles, as we see Morwood now right up behind the Ferrari, if we remove Adam and Shamblizi, who both have drive-through penalties to serve, then we're actually looking at a 1-3 for Haas, because Morwood is in position to move all the way up to P3 once all of those cars are shifted out of the way.
Yeah, and we saw Morwood perform very well in Brazil, nearly hanging on to the podium there, but stretching a set of tires way longer than I think they even should have. And around another track that's high degradation, it's going to kind of suit the skill set we've been seeing from him at the early stages of this season of keeping those tires alive and stretching them a long way.
Unfortunately, the old commentator's curse has come into effect because just as I was singing Morwood's praises, a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings and one for false 12 a couple of places back.
Yeah, and with the track limits, we should probably see a few more coming in. But importantly, Boof and AR Donald out front still have yet to pick one up. We will see if Adam and Shamblizi is the first to serve his drive-through. We'll see where he comes back out on. Looks like Ole Olaf is going by. He should be able to slot into P11 at this stage.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's painful, the drive-through penalty, but Shamblizi's still in a position of P11 to try and recover some sort of points finish from this one.
Yeah, it's still early in the stages of the season. Unfortunate to have a strong points finish kind of taken away from you, but got to kind of persevere, try and score as many points, especially with the team championship that we have going on now, and look for drivers in the other divisions to kind of pick you up this week, and then later on in the season, look forward to picking somebody else's mistakes or unfortunate incidents up.
Fastest lap of the race was set there by Dolphy, but Dolphy not really a factor in this one, of course, with that heavy wing damage on the first couple of laps of the race, having to come in and change that wing, very much just on a recovery drive now and hoping for a safety car.
Yeah, still only about 30 seconds off the lead there. We'll see if anybody else, False 12 really the only one not going to be able to make it to the tail end of the race, but we'll see where he drops as he has to make a second pit stop as he's on the mediums there.
Yeah, Morwood now making that move on Charlie Chibbles, whose tyres will be screaming in pain a little bit. Very easy pass for the Haas, as it was Adam just serving the drive-through penalty there, who's dropping down the leaderboard. So Morwood now up into what is net P3 once Donald decides to come into the pit lane. But it is still Donald leading this race from Booth and Timalele on lap 17. We are just beyond the halfway point. And here is a replay of some of the incidents so far. So Timalele there up the inside. We'll have a chance to have a look at the incident involving Cruzo, I imagine, at some point. And then here's some of the fighting that we saw earlier, especially involving the Ferraris. The Ferrari's seen a lot of action today. Charlie Chibbles, of course, on the older tyres, just kind of being a bit of a cork in the bottle in the midfield.
Yeah, it's going to hold them up a bit. Oh, yeah, there it is. As Cruzo just gets it a little loose coming around, and once the back end goes, there's really no saving the car, and it's hard into the barriers that brought out that VSC.
So lap 18, Morwood, fastest lap of the race in that Haas. Look at the chase down Timalele. Both drivers have a penalty, so they essentially cancel each other out. And Charlie Chibbles still running strongly in P5 on those hard tyres, but largely just looking for a safety car if we can possibly get one. Under a lot of pressure from Rage now in the AlphaTauri.
Yeah, we should see them run about another 7-8 laps if they're going to go on to mediums to the end. Really going to have to stretch about another 9 laps or so to get onto a set of softs to go to the end. But depending on for Charlie Chibbles and Donald, if they saved some tires in qualifying, then they may have the opportunity to be absolutely rapid at the tail end of the race, while everybody else is on worn hards and them being on fresh softs potentially.
So this is the closest battle on the track at the moment. We're very much just in a phase of the race where people are managing tyres, and we're waiting for some of these tyre strategies to converge again as we get towards the end of this one. But things have quietened down for the time being. On board now with Rage in that AlphaTauri, just following in the dirty air of both Charlie Chibbles and Morwood. And the problem for Rage is that because Morwood isn't really getting away from that Ferrari, despite being on considerably fresher tyres, the Ferrari's picking up the DRS down this straight, and it's making it a lot more difficult for the AlphaTauri to sweep by.
Yeah, it looks like he's gotten a decent runoff, though, getting that double slipstream effect. Is he going to have a peak down the inside? He moves right under braking there onto the inside of turn 1. He's gotten it through. Can he keep it steady through turn 2? And he completes that move on Charlie Chibbles. So able to get that double slipstream, fight off of that DRS train, and is able to move himself up now behind Morwood. And we'll see if he's got the pace to get by him.
Charlie Chibbles not fighting something that we don't need to fight. This isn't really our race at this stage.
Yeah, on that alternative strategy, definitely wanting to hold the position for as long as they can, but not going to cost themselves any time fighting a move that was eventually going to be made by Rage, who is both of the races this season now started to really show an ability to fight back through the field.
So, as we are on lap 19 of this race, every single driver in the field, with the exception of False 12, is currently on the C1 tyre, the hard tyre.
Yeah, and only a couple of drivers left to pit. Pretty much everybody that is on that C1 tire going to go to the end. Donald, Charlie Chibbles, and False 12, really the only drivers left to make any pit stops necessary at the end of this race. Obviously, Donald and Charlie Chibbles now coming into the pit lane. I think at this phase, he's going to be going on to the medium, we should see. Probably a little long to be stretching 13 laps on a set of soft tires, but we'll see what his mechanics have.
Here's a move from Rage on Morwood to turn 1, and the AlphaTauri going through into P4, net P3, once we see the pit stop from Donald, and medium tyres indeed for Charlie Chibbles in that Ferrari.
Yeah, great move from Rage, just like he did on Charlie the lap before, setting up for that DRS move. And this time, though, Morwood not having the help of DRS in front of him to get a little bit of that extra straight line speed. Pretty straightforward move. We'll see if Rage is going to be able to open up that gap, as there's Charlie Chibbles coming out side by side with Pusel there from the pit lane, and is able to come out just ahead of the Williams driver.
Yeah, so P10 means that we have a point in our pocket now in that Ferrari, and any other spaces we can gain just are essentially net bonus. But there is a 5.3 second gap to make up to Chamblizi already.
Yeah, he's got a bit of a gap to make, but he is on a quicker tire, and as this race kind of goes on, 13 laps, you got plenty of life in those mediums to get it to the end, and they should have good performance all the way through. So as that fuel load burns off and the car gets even lighter, we should see Charlie Chibbles starting to eat into that gap, as it's already 4.8 seconds as he's just making his outlaps. That's a purple second sector there.
Fastest lap from Rage. Donald in the pits, the final drive at the stop, and Donald going to the medium tyre, as we'd expect. Poor exit from the final corner there kind of cost Morwood a chance to come back at Rage. So your top three are Booth, Timalele, and Rage. Look
And
at that.
Donald, after having started from the very back row there after that disqualification, now really making that hard tire strategy work all the way up 11 places now, knocking on the door of a top 5 finish if he can just close that 2 seconds to Luke in front of him.
That really is an excellent drive, and it's a shame about the penalty that we've got there, because otherwise Donald has largely played this perfectly. Just go with a hard tire, run it as long as we possibly can, and we've made up spaces when there's been incidents going on in front, just through consistent laps at our own pace. And look at that. P6, 1.6 seconds behind Luke in the Red Bull, and on 10 lap fresher tires of a softer compound as well.
Yeah, and he's eaten about 7/10 already in this lap after coming out of the pit lane there. So I would be shocked if by the next race next lap he was not in a position to be making an attack. He's going to be just outside the DRS range this time as he locks up a little bit coming through the chicane. But I'd say by the next time through, you should have an easy time getting past Luke.
3-second time penalty for Erbil. And the one driver we haven't really talked about is Booth. And that is really exactly what Booth wants 22 laps into this 33-lap race. Nice and steady, no drama. Everything's looking very, very good for the Haas driver. Nearly 6 seconds clear of Timalele, plus a time penalty on the second place Mercedes as well.
Yeah, and after week 1 where he came together with his teammate in a lap 1, turn 1 incident, and they both had to fight their way through the field, Booth is showing incredible pace after starting from the front, not picking up any damage, not getting into any squabbles really, aside from the early, kind of side-by-side fighting with the other leaders, but able to clear the field and is smooth, like just flying away from Timalele at this point, who's picking up more track limits penalties.
The thing to watch now is the time delta between Timalele and Rage, because of course Timalele has that penalty, and as it stands, if Rage can get within 3 seconds, that is a net P2 for the AlphaTauri.
Yeah, they're on the same age of tire, the same time they came in pit. Rage is closed up by a couple of tenths there, and I think really being behind Moorwood and Charlie Chilbles was kind of a cork in the bottle for him. He's showing really good pace now that he's cleared those drivers.
The concern for Timalele as well is that he's on 5 warnings, so one more of them and we are looking at an additional 3 seconds. We just saw Adam picking up his second 3-second time penalty, and it was all going so well for the McLarens early on in the race, and it has gone very, very south. Ollie Olaf has recovered to 7th place after that spin earlier on, and the contact, of course, with Rage in the early part of the race. But Adam now P8 with 6 seconds of time penalties to his name.
And Division 2's been doing quite well with managing the track limits. I see it in the chat here a little bit. Division 1 picked up a lot of track limits penalties. I think only about 2 drivers escaped without a penalty for track limits at the end of that race. But a lot of the Division 2 drivers keeping it within the white lines there, maybe not pushing quite as hard, but really trying to up their consistency. And that could, like you say, could become a factor of Timalele being on the podium. If he picks up another 3 seconds worth of time penalties, then he could be in danger of Moorwood closing up.
Worth keeping an eye on Donald here, who is close to within 4/10 of Luke, and looking for all the world like we're going to see a DRS pass here coming down the main straight. Coming out of the final corner now. We are wing wide open, and this is surely going to be elementary for Donald.
Yeah, and Luke just going to try and grab a little bit of that slipstream, diving behind Donald there, who is well clear ahead of him, but should be able to open up the gap. Now, Donald does have 3 seconds where Luke does not, so Donald still has to make up a 3-second gap on Luke in the next 9 laps here before the end of this race.
Rage now within 2.6 seconds of Timalele, so as it stands, unless there's a mistake from the AlphaTauri, looking very, very good to finish P2 in this one. Other than that, Charlie Chibbles is catching up to the back of Chamblizi at a fast rate of knots, just about to break the 1 second for DRS there. But beyond that, we've kind of got a little bit of field spread here with drivers fairly spread out.
Got kind of their own little bit of fresh air to run in now, so not too much dirty air on the front of the wings, just kind of turning in consistent lap times. And that may be a factor, a contributing factor to why Div 1 picked up so many track limits penalties, because they were racing very close all the way throughout the race, and you saw a lot of drivers kind of understeering through the dirty air off all those track limits times. So Chamblizi, though, losing a bit of time to Charlie Chibbles as they head into that final sector. Charlie really going to have a good opportunity through this final sector to set up that DRS pass like we just saw Donald make on Luke. I think it'll be a fairly similar move we'll see from Charlie if he's got the electrical energy to play with.
Fastest lap of the race from Donald, who is setting after Morwood, and a 3-second time penalty for Pussel in the Williams won't do any favours for him trying to sneak up into the points here. But Charlie Chibble's not close enough on this lap, and we'll have to wait for the next DRS zone, unless there's a mistake from Chamblizi ahead.
Yeah, and you're hitting a stage where the tires still feel all right. There's still plenty of grip in those hard compounds, but you are going to have to kind of be a little bit more careful about your braking zones as Chamblizi just locked up there down into turn 5. So trying to keep that front left from overheating. Obviously, you have those really hard leaning as he gets very wide through turn 8. Now Charlie Chibbles in a non-traditional overtaking zone, but in a DRS zone nonetheless, moving to the inside as Chamblizi picked up a time penalty running wide on the exit of turn 9 there. And I think Charlie Chibbles just going to make that move done, as you were talking about a mistake from Chamblizi, and then we saw one happen.
Yeah, Chamblizi really compounding the misery now, because False 12 is only 2.7 seconds behind and catching pretty quickly, though it must be said also has a time penalty to their name as well of 3 seconds. So nobody at this stage appears to have picked up more than 3 seconds. I was wrong on Adam before. I said he had 6, but in fact the other penalty he had was the drive-through, which has already been served. So my mistake on that one. Currently looking at Donald, who is closing by a couple of tenths a lap on Morwood. We've got, 7 laps to go in this one. So we'll see whether that's enough to be able to get into range. Both of those drivers with 3 seconds with the time penalties. So nothing to make things awkward there. They're both essentially on the same piece of racetrack if they get within DRS of each other.
Yeah, and Dolphy being the next to pick up a set of 3-second time penalties there in P12. So those outside the top 10, not necessarily doing themselves any favors with that there, but yeah, still kind of everybody split a little bit out. Pucel and Dolphy is the closest battle on track, the only one within a second at the moment, now that a couple of the medium tire runners have cleared the hard tire runners that were ahead of them.
Yeah, and Dolphy getting that move done fairly recently, but did pick up a first time penalty of the race in the process. But with Pucel already having a time penalty as well, that move for P12 will stick. Another 5.2 seconds for the recovering Dolphy to try and catch up to False 12, and then another couple of seconds on that to reach Chamblizi in the points. So a long way to go if we want to steal a point out of this race. As it is, we're just looking at the gap now between Rage and Morwood. Rage has got that gap up to around 1.5 seconds, and it's not really budging, which, with the impending penalty for Timalele, would see this race finish with a 1-2-3 of Booth, Rage, and Timalele.
Yeah, at this point, Rage just needs to not even worry about trying to catch Timalele on track. He just needs to be looking at that 3-second margin, but also most importantly, not picking up one himself. We saw it happen in the PC Division 1 race where Weltering was just kind of cruising along and was looking to jump, but then picked up 3 seconds of his own and then had to start pushing to try and get that position on track.
Everything a bit status quo here between P2, P3 and P4 as we come around to start lap 28. Booth still with a commanding lead at the front of this one, and Timalele really not showing any signs of being able to make up the 9 seconds it would take. So as far as Booth's concerned, as long as we don't make a mistake or we see any late drama with the safety car, this one is looking very, very good for the Haas driver.
Yeah, this is looking a lot more like a normal Spain race that we tend to see in real life F1 after the cracker of a race that we had in Division 1 with a last lap fight for the lead. Although there was a time period where it was pretty quiet in Div 1 as well, where everybody was kind of settled in, and then a couple of drivers closed up and really made an interesting fight in the last 2 or 3 laps of that race.
Luke in P6 beginning to struggle on those hard tyres and falling back from Donald now, moving towards Ole Olaf, who is trying to get within DRS range of that Red Bull.
Yeah, and Ole Olaf recovering from that spin. I'm sure we'll see him be a little bit more measured when it comes to his overtaking attempts, maybe picking a little bit better spot. But he is in a spot where he can close up and make an attack on Luke at some point. He seems to be at least handling the grip levels of those hard tires a little bit better than what Luke is, as he's starting to close that gap close to that 1 second margin.
Charlie Chibble's not really making much of an impression now on Adam. There is a time delta to look at because Adam does have a 3-second time penalty. So if Charlie Chibbles can get within 3 seconds of that McLaren, then it is de facto 8th position once the penalty is applied.
Yeah, I think we're starting to hit a bit of a switchover point about midway through the stint life of that set of medium tires. They're going to start to lose a bit of their performance advantage, and we should see those time deltas starting to level off a little bit more. At this stage of the race, your improvement in lap time is really more about the car being lighter and on less fuel rather than what the tire degradation is. A couple of things I've noticed in some of my practice running is that some of my fastest laps, even on hard tires were at the tail end of the race just because the car got light rather than the hard tires slowing down because they were degrading.
Fastest lap of the race still held by Donald in the Renault, and to be honest, I don't think anybody is really looking like they're going to match that time of a 1:17.6 because nobody else has even got into the 17s at any point in this race.
Yeah, Boof is happy to be cruising along out front in the now into the low 19s, high 18s. So to improve by more than a second or so to really attack that fastest lap could be a big change there. Tim Lele also lapping in the high to mid 18s, so maybe closing up just a tiny bit of the gap there, but still has a lot of ground to make. And Rage really holding a similar lap time to what Tim Lele is doing, as you can see that interval still hanging out at about that 2.5 seconds.
False 12 in P11, looking to pick up that final point for Alfa Romeo in DRS range of Chamblisi, but probably not close enough on this lap to make a move. We've got a few more laps to try and get that final point. Both of these drivers with a 3-second time penalty, which means that from False 12's point of view, we can't afford to just sit behind. We have to get this move done on the track the old-fashioned way. So here we are, lap 30. A few laps to go now. Booth still in the lead. We've lost about 6-7 tenths of a second over the course of this lap. I'm not sure if there was a mistake in there somewhere from Booth's point of view. But I'm checking his times on the race director, and there's been 2 warnings. So a third warning would pick us up a time penalty. But to be honest, we don't really need to push at this stage. And that's probably just us managing the gap to Timalele in P2, especially with the Mercedes having an extra 3 seconds to add to the race time.
Yeah, it looks like it'll take some serious late race heroics in order to make any kind of moves at this stage. Everybody's kind of settled in, and especially with where the track limits penalties are kind of sitting, doesn't look like there's going to be too much change before we hit the end of this race here, as Boof really well out in front. Rage is closed up by a couple of tenths or so. We see Chamblisi having lost that position now to False 12.
Yeah, speaking of late race heroics, False 12 moving up into the points for Alfa Romeo. And Chamblisi, who finished P11 in the first race in Brazil, I do believe, facing the unenviable prospect of finishing P11 again.
Yeah, getting just right on the border of points there. Definitely frustrating, especially having run inside the points for so long. Obviously, that penalty really hurting them from that drive-through pitting under that VSC, as Donald has just picked up a 3-second penalty there.
Now, I was about to ask if Donald had maybe made a mistake somewhere, because Luke has caught right up to the back of the Renault, and Ole Olaf getting involved as well. So this is the race to watch on the track now, but Donald now with 6 seconds of time penalties, and that is suddenly 2 positions lost when there's 2 cars within 2 seconds just behind.
Yeah, there must have been a mistake there as he crossed the start-finish line. It showed that his lap time was 3 seconds slower than his best there, which he had set only a couple of laps ago. So he ran a lap in the 121s nearly. But Luke has just picked up a 3-second time penalty just behind him. So Looks like Donald may hold at least one spot. Ole Olaf, though, in that slot to steal and jump 2 spots now with the cars ahead of him with those penalties.
Yeah, so if you're Ole Olaf now, you don't need to do anything. You're not realistically going to catch Morwood, who's another 4.5 seconds up the road. If you just sit where you are de facto position 5 in this race, which, considering we were round at one point and facing the wrong way, would be a pretty decent result.
Yeah, picking up 10 points after you were looking the wrong direction on a track at some point in the race is nothing to be upset about, I'd say, as far as the day is concerned.
Chamblizi still within range of false 12 to try and get that final points position back. DRS open as we go down the back straight, but we got to watch this fight for P5. Will Luke feel the need to make the move on the track? Especially, I mean, Luke is past Donald, but may feel the need to try and get away from Ole Olaf. But we move on to the final lap of this one. Booth still with a 7-second lead out in front. And Luke just holding station, not able to get close enough to that Renault on the fresher tyres. The driver of the day poll is up. Well, aptly named Donald of the day. Donald having gone from P17, I should say, on the grid to what will be P7, unless there's any late drama. Ole Olaf just dropping back a little bit, but not dropping back by enough for there to be any issues here. Rage and Morwood have closed right up to the back of Timalele on this final lap of the race. Rage is going to finish second once these penalties are applied, but I don't think Morwood is close enough. There's not really going to be an opportunity to overtake unless there's any mistakes from any of these drivers. But coming out of the final chicane now is Booth in the Haas, round the final corner to win in Spain. And Booth takes victory in round 2 of Division 2. A very, very comfortable win. Just watching Timalele out of the final corner now. And it'll be Rage in second position. Timalele P3 getting onto the podium in the Mercedes. And Morwood making it a 1-4 for the Haas team. Ole Olaf 5th after penalties have been applied. Luke in P6. And Donald, a very, very commendable drive from the back of the grid to P7. Adam comes home in P9 thanks to penalties. Charlie Chibbles did manage to get within 3 seconds and picks up P8 in the Ferrari. And False 12 holds on for the final point in the Alfa Romeo.
A very commanding performance from Booth. Really only didn't lead the one lap at the start, and then obviously the laps under the pit strategy overlap where Adam had the lead there and Donald was up towards the top of the fields there. But otherwise, a nearly 9-second lead there, coming home and really showing tremendous pace, taking the pole position and leading the race essentially start to finish.
Indeed, a very, very nice victory for Booth, and very possibly the first Haas driver to win a race this season. I could be mistaken. I've not checked all of the divisions, but in the majority I've had a look. I don't think Haas have got a win yet, so that might be the first. But congratulations to Booth, who really 3/10 or 2.5 to 3/10 ahead in qualifying, moving on to what was, after the penalty was applied, about an 8 or 9 second victory. Very, very comfortable for the Haas driver, who picks up the 25 points for the victory today.
Yeah, and big for Team Haas in the Teams Championship as well, getting that win on the board there. Big haul of points for them to start closing up that gap after the penalties really harmed them.
So final standings, Booth the winner today. Rage coming home in second place in that AlphaTauri to take the lead of the Drivers' Championship. Timalele rounding out the podium for Mercedes, unfortunately losing out on second place thanks to that 3-second time penalty. Morwood is 4th for Haas, making it a great day for the Banbury-based team. Ole Olaf coming home 5th place for McLaren, with Luke just behind in P6. Donald from the back of the field comes home in P7 and picks up the bonus point for the fastest lap in that race. Charlie Chibbles, the other driver to start on the hard tyres, coming home in P8, again from towards the back of the grid, so a very good drive there. Adam in the second McLaren is 9th, and False 12 picks up the solitary point for P10 for Alfa Romeo Racing. We are going to take a short break, after which we will be back with an interview with the 2 AlphaTauri drivers, Rage and Mark Hopkins. Welcome back, everybody, to our post-race show here in Spain. At the end of that, not quite as lively as the first race, but certainly lively enough race from Division 2. And we are here with the two AlphaTauri drivers, which includes the current leader of the Division 2 Drivers' Championship. So, Rage, how was that race for you today? Was the win way too far out of the question? Booth looking very strong today. And most importantly, how happy are you to be in the lead of the Drivers' Championship?
Well, I'm going to take those questions in order. So, it was a good race, I think. At the end, it was an interesting race because I think we were all a bit taken aback by the fact that there was no formation lap. So, we were really thrown into the deep end. I picked up some damage on lap 2 in a small incident with one of the McLarens, and I had to pit a bit earlier than I really wanted to. And then it was just trying to be consistent, looking after the tires and just staying out of trouble, which, yeah, it worked out.
Yeah, so you'll have known that Timolele ahead had the time penalty. So was it just a case of sitting behind and not doing anything silly?
Yes, it really was. It was trying to just stay within those 3 seconds, not get any penalties, and try to not get the tires to explode.
So, 2 second places, first place in the Drivers' Championship. Are we taking the Nelson Piquet approach to this?
Well, as long as it works, I'm going to keep doing it. It's, yeah, I'm really happy with that. I really didn't expect to be in the lead after round 2, after a less than stellar season 2. So yeah, I couldn't be happier.
Good stuff. Well, Mark, a little bit more of a difficult race for yourself. Want to forget, perhaps? Move on to the next one?
Yeah, I mean, usually I can sort of get within a couple of tenths of Rage, and especially qualifying performance. I mean, last time in Brazil, I think I qualified higher up. This race, you know, we did some practice on Tuesday and I was a second down. And to be honest, I didn't really have much time to practice, and I never found any of that time. So I was way down on pace, didn't have much time to practice, and then I lost a bit of front wing right at the start. And I don't know if you, well, I'm just watching, I think that's Cruzo getting spun around potentially by trying to dive up my inside. I do remember that. Or one of the McLarens it is. I just realised that Cruzo isn't in the McLaren.
There was Cruzo on the highlights there.
But yeah, just a bit difficult, and hopefully next race we'll get back into form.
Quimbulus, any questions from yourself?
No, but well, rather for Mark actually. So for the team's championship, I'm sure you have these days to forget, but definitely got to be happy with how Rage put himself up towards the top as well, and I'm sure you'll get yourself back up there as well, since the benefit of the team's championship is, we can all have our off days, but everybody in the other divisions is picking up. How has the team's championship maybe affected your mentality in the racing?
Well, I kind of knew pretty early on. I mean, basically after I lost my front wing, I knew that I wasn't going to get any points or anything. So I was staying out there. I do remember Charlie Chibbles. I think I just saw Rage go flying past him there on the broadcast. But I saw Charlie Chibbles coming up behind me. They'd obviously pitted, and I was still out on my first set. So I didn't make it easy for them. In fact, I specifically made it as hard as I could because I didn't really know where Rage was, and I just kind of wanted to hold them up just in case Rage was able to get the jump on them, either in front or behind. I think we've driven together since, well, in the Set Corsa we've been on sort of the same team, and we've been driving with an open communication in season 2. So yeah, I think we help each other out if need be.
Well, 18 points on the board nonetheless for AlphaTauri today. So as much as I'm sure Mark would have preferred that was a bit more of an even split, it's still good points to have for the team's championship. So at the very least, a consolation prize in that regard. I think we are about done here. We, of course, don't forget, if you're on Instagram, don't forget you can follow FRS on Instagram at FRS_Racing League, which gives you an exclusive look at the team's championship each week. Other than that, all that's really left for me to do is to say thank you to Quimbulus. Any final thoughts on the race today?
Oh, it was a more traditional Spain race, but still had its exciting moments there. But the only other thing I will say before we get ready to sign off is stay tuned on the channel as we start to host the community streams as other divisions go off that are either driven in by those of us in the production channels here, Tom getting on that PS4 division races, and then also ones that are hosted by more of the community around, as we have 8 PC divisions, 3 PlayStation divisions, and 2 Xbox divisions going on all through the weekend. So some of those will be rehosted here, and also others will have links in the profiles and descriptions here on Twitch.
Indeed, plenty more FRS action for you over the course of this weekend. That is it from us. So as we say, stay tuned to the channel, and I'm pretty sure one of the other races that's going on will be auto hosted. I've been Harry Dodd, and Quimbulus has been with me on commentary today. Big thank you to Tom Mack, of course, for producing everything. A marvelous job. And the FR Series channel will be back next week for round 3 in Monza.